And I think in listening to you and reading some of your blogs earlier, you talk about it as everyday trauma.
Yes.
And I equate that to a term that I'm familiar with through school, which is allostatic load and allostatic loading and allostatic overloading.
Yeah.
Um, and it's kind of like radiation. Okay, it's cumulative in the body. Okay, a little bit at a time, you're okay. But as it starts to build up in your body, it starts to be negative. It starts to really impact you physically. And the same thing can be said mentally, I believe, for trauma. And I want to dispel the rumor that you have to have been a service member in combat to be eligible for PTSD.
Right.
Wrong, wrong, wrong.
Welcome to the Serve, Love, Lift podcast. I'm Tiffany Garvin. Years ago on a quiet beach in Hawaii, I felt the weight of the pain and struggles we all face in this world and how much we need each other. Soon after, this movement was born to serve, love, and lift. I believe that we are meant to serve the world with our unique gifts, love ourselves and others, and lift each other up to live with joy. This podcast is here to help you heal your heart and your life and empower you on your path to becoming the best version of yourself. I invite you to listen carefully and jot down notes that come to mind, whether they come from me or from your own heart. Then, share this episode with 3 people who you feel could use it today. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get going. It's my privilege to introduce our guest today. Paul Whitmer is a survivor turned mentor. He's retired U.S. Army with over 34 years of government service, having participated in numerous operational deployments, including Operation Enduring Freedom twice and Operation Iraqi Freedom 3 times. He earned numerous service medals and Department of Army civilian awards. He now works as a facilitator for the amazing nonprofit organization Warrior Connection that helps veterans and their families heal their inner wounds of war. He also volunteers as a mentor with the Veterans Treatment Court and is pursuing a master's degree in social work. Paul is married to his lovely wife Karen for 15 years now, together with his service dog, also named Paul. The pair continue to serve, helping fellow veterans and their families. Welcome, Paul. It's such an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Tiffany. I'm very pleased to be here. Hearing you say all those words makes me feel like I'm something special. But I'll be honest with you, there's a lot of people out there that have done a lot more than me. But it's good to be recognized, and it's good to be in good circles. So thank you.
Absolutely. You're welcome. And thank you for your service. I'm so grateful for your sacrifices and especially as we will continue our conversation today with all that it has challenged you since your initial service. So I'm so inspired by your story. I'm grateful that you're here and willing to share a bit of your journey with us. You've been through a lot and now you're giving back. And it seems like that your own journey to overcome trauma and get your life back has led you to desiring to help others do the same thing. So you experienced a lot of atrocities, a lot of awful realities of war. And yet it wasn't until later that you started having these symptoms of post-traumatic stress and your first big panic attack. You shared with me Sebastian Junger's TED Talk that described your first panic attack. Is that correct?
It nailed it spot on. Yeah, I met, and it's interesting because when I was in my 07-08 deployment in northern Afghanistan, I was in the same area as Sebastian and had the occasion to meet him several times while he was there as a writer putting together his book War. So to come back later and watch that TED talk years later and hear him talk about that, and then it's unbelievable. I would love to be able to see him again and look at him and go, what happened to you is exactly what happened to me.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until that happened that I didn't have a problem that I knew of. Everything was fine.
Isn't that
Um,
crazy?
it is. I did my first 3 tours in Iraq and came home and I slept like a baby every night. I didn't have, and I haven't had nightmares or night terrors or anything like that. I just couldn't get, when I came back in 07, 08, I just couldn't get to sleep. Something had changed, and I was engaged during that deployment to my wife, and later, we eventually married, and she's probably wondering, what did I get myself into? He leaves and he's one guy, and he comes back and he's a different guy.
No.
Um, but I didn't feel different. I just couldn't sleep, and when you can't sleep, everything else comes around.
Yeah.
So I think sleep is the bedrock of mental health. We mentioned earlier that I really don't have an event that I can put my finger on and go, this is when it happened. I keep remembering this.
Yeah.
I don't have that, and that makes it hard when you don't have that reference point to sort of attack in a therapeutic or clinical setting. It's really, really hard to tie down what's causing all this. Um, so, but yeah, it's been quite a journey.
Yeah, that's amazing. Let's jump into that
Sure.
idea first, because that's something that we really connected on is through my work with mentoring people over the last 9 years and my own healing journey from the 3 chronic illnesses for 18 years and realizing that so much of it was triggered from early trauma. It wasn't some bug I got and then it went awry. It was trauma induced with this special trigger, 3 chronic illnesses. And I wonder, I mentioned this to you before, I wonder how many people truly are walking around this world wondering why they have anxiety and depression and they're hypervigilant and they have insomnia or nightmares or all these difficult things that in another situation we would call PTSD. We would call it post-traumatic stress, but because they don't identify with any particular significant traumatic event, it becomes this detached and disorienting set of symptoms, I think, because we can't just say, well, that's what caused it. And that's what Western medicine is used to. We're used to going to a doctor and saying, I have these symptoms. And he says, oh, well, it's because of this thing. But in the world of mental health, and I dare to venture even more than that, because I experience physical issues from mine, it is a series of events. It's a compounding of difficult experiences throughout our lives that build up and add up to where our bodies just hit this, like you call it, a tipping point. And all of a sudden, we have additional sensitivities and worries and anxieties and panic attacks and whatever it is. And in my stage of life right now, it's that menopause thing, and so it's easy to just blame a lot of things on menopause. But because I know better, I recognize that that's just one more thing to turn up the heat, literally and figuratively, to cause these additional symptoms, to cause panic attacks where it's like, there's no reason for me to be panicking right now. There's no reason for me to have this anxiety, or the opposite almost end of it, this depression of heaviness. But it's real. And I think millions and millions of people struggle with this variation of what veterans experience in the post-traumatic stress in war. But it's just the war of life. It's the chaos that we constantly deal with that we can't just pinpoint one thing because it's getting cut off in traffic and that jolts us and we don't process it, right? It's hearing our kids in the other room and there's a crash and we panic and we run and everything's fine, but unlike animals in the forest, we don't just brush it off. We ruminate on it, or at least our subconscious does. So I'm taking up all the airtime, but I want you to weigh in because you had so many beautiful insights of this common thing that we totally see is happening.
And I think in listening to you and reading some of your blogs earlier, you talk about it as everyday trauma.
Yes.
And I equate that to a term that I'm familiar with through school, which is allostatic load and allostatic loading and allostatic overloading.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like radiation. Okay, it's cumulative in the body. Okay, a little bit at a time, you're okay, but as it starts to build up in your body, it starts to be negative. It starts to really impact you physically. And the same thing can be said mentally, I believe, for trauma. And I want to dispel the rumor that you have to have been a service member in combat to be eligible for PTSD.
Right.
Wrong, wrong, wrong. I deal with a lot of folks and work with a lot of folks that have no affiliation with the military, and yet the exact same symptoms are present. Yeah. The same modalities are being used to treat these folks and to move them past this. It was really vivid to me in working with TWC, the Warrior Connection. We do peer-to-peer counseling, and it's very common to work in small groups and everybody's talking and we're talking amongst ourselves and basically we heal each other.
Love that.
But as we start to drill down into, what caused this, I don't know, it must have been my wartime service, only to find out that it was something that happened in childhood and the wartime service just pushed it to that point where it's now we've got to deal with it.
Yeah.
You were able to keep it closed up and it wasn't affecting you, but now we've reached the point where the level has affected you and we've got to handle this. But a lot of people don't seem to, like you said, they want to point to the easiest possible explanation. You've got PTSD because you were in the service.
Yeah.
Maybe that service was just the tipping point. That service was just that extra spoonful that put you over the top. It's really enlightening to read some of your stories on everyday trauma, and because it's spot on. I mean, it's spot on. So I think you, amongst all others, probably have a greater grasp on this concept than most.
Yeah, living it and trying to solve it, and then working with so many people over the last few years where things come up and it's like, wait, you just listed off all the common symptoms of PTSD. And they're like, but I didn't really have anything significant like that. I wasn't in war. I wasn't in a natural disaster. I wasn't in a massive car accident. I wasn't abused as a child, right? And yet, if we really dig, like you say, if we start digging into, okay, what did your life look like? It's like, well, the things I remember are being bullied a little bit in elementary school. Are you serious? That's real. That's a real experience, especially as a child, when you don't have that maturity and that mental awareness to process it and talk your way out of it logically so that it doesn't get stuck. That's totally trauma. And I think what we can get to is that it's not trauma or not trauma. It's the everyday trauma where it's a spectrum. and a difficult experience. If you get up in elementary school and you give a report, and on a book report, and you hear some snickering in the back of the room, that does something to us. All of a sudden, our subconscious goes, wait a second, that could have been directed to me. Somebody's laughing at me, which means, right, then we start connecting the dots. And then we give these difficult experiences meaning without even trying. Either we consciously talk about it and somebody else adds into story, or our subconscious just starts piecing together things, because I'm sure you've seen this too. Our minds desperately want to make sense of our situations. And so it'll make up things to help things make sense, because life has to make sense. There's this thing inside of us that says A plus B equals C. And if something doesn't fit into that formula, things don't line up, then our subconscious has to work overtime to draw from past experiences, past understandings, to go, oh, I know what it is. And it could totally make up some awful story, and we'll never know the difference. And then we totally, start short circuiting.
It's frustrating. I mean, it's frustrating. We want to be able, and when people reach the point where, hey, I've got to get some help, and then to turn to somebody and seek help, which is, especially in military circles, is a big deal. To seek help, only to find out that you can't really pin down what it is that the problem is. Now you're really frustrated. Yeah. And now you start to get a little angry. And now you start to get a little depressed. And you start to get a little anxious. And, a lot of folks, and myself included at times, will, wake up in the middle of the night and my brain will be this hamster on a wheel, just running wide open. Yeah. And I'll be ruminating about all these things. I should have done this. I could have done this. I didn't do this, but I should have done it. And it's hard to shut off sometimes. I think the VA would be prone to give you something to help you sleep, or prone to give you something to knock your anxiety back or your depression back. And those are, don't get me wrong, meds are essential for some people.
They have their place.
Absolutely.
For sure.
I'm not sure that they're essential for everybody.
Yeah.
I think this may be the call to, hey, let's go find a way to deal with this, and maybe not popping something in your mouth that may be the convenient route, but I think we're just putting it in a stasis, and later it's going to come back out again.
Exactly.
So we need to do a better job of addressing the problem and completing the mission to drilling down to where this came from. And a lot of times, guys, and myself included, take the meds, and then you realize one day that I still have all this, nothing's changed. It's still right there affecting me.
Well, and you mentioned before that what they did to you too was cause you to feel numbed and disoriented. So that doesn't help.
No, not at all. And I know there's countless folks that would agree with this. And again, the meds have a place, especially in critical incidents, threat to self or others. I mean, those meds have a place. But just to arbitrarily dispense meds and think that you're solving this issue, you're just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
Someday this guy or gal is going to have to step up and deal with this. And the sooner the better. The sooner the better. And there's a lot of great organizations out there that really take it and run with it.
Let's get into that, because you're the poster boy of having gone through this difficulty and persevered and kept pushing through to find those answers. You recognized the medication wasn't right for you, and so you went another route. Take us through that journey of the different things you started recognizing, and tell us a little bit about Paul.
Sure. The panic attack that started me down this trail of, hey, so you've got a problem. it happened after I returned from Afghanistan in '08. And I was in a pretty kinetic area. I was with a unit, the 173rd Airborne out of Italy. Hoo-ah to those guys.
Yeah.
Uh, we were up in the north in Nuristan and Kunar provinces, which were really volatile areas at that time, especially. And this was my fourth tour. I'd done three to Iraq, and came back on the fourth tour. And while I was in Afghanistan, I sought out another position within the Army and accepted it. And the deal was, hey, you've got to be on ready to work within 30 days of coming back. So I landed, and within 2 weeks, my future wife and I had the movers come take all our stuff. And here we were driving from Atlanta, Georgia, up north towards Illinois. And literally, I'd been 14 days earlier, I was in northern Afghanistan. So there wasn't a lot of decompression.
Wow.
We were moving through this area near Chattanooga, Tennessee, where the hills are all stacked rock, where they've blasted the highway through the mountains, the
Yeah.
Lookout Mountain area. And it was identical to, or very, very similar to what we had in Afghanistan, what I had left 2 weeks earlier. So we
Wow.
had a little bit of a similarity in the area. I'm driving one vehicle, she's driving another. And all of a sudden, I couldn't push the gas or the brake. I couldn't turn the wheel. I was just frozen in my seat. And I did not know what was happening. Middle of the day, my wife came over the radio and said, "Hey, what's going on? You okay? Something wrong with the truck?" And I had a radio clip to my, and I'm sure all these couples that have PCS moved and done the Diddy, the do-it-yourself move, can relate to this. When two cars have to talk to one another and you're not using your cell phone, I keyed the radio on my seatbelt and I said, I don't know what's going on, but I'm having trouble here, babe. And she swung in behind me and turned her blinkers on. And now I'm doing about 45 in a 75. And people are flying. Everything's going too fast. And you remember Sebastian Younger talking about everything was trying to kill me.
Yeah.
Everything was going too fast and everything was trying to kill me. And spot on.
Wow.
Cars were flying by left and right, honking their horns. And I was just, and by the grace of God, thank the Lord, a few hundred meters in front of us was a off-ramp for a rest area. And I managed to turn the wheel of this truck and slide across lanes into this off-ramp. And it felt like turning a battleship. I don't know how else to explain it. I slid off that off-ramp and into a parking area, and I got out, and I was ill. And my wife and I sat there together for probably 2 hours before we felt comfortable resuming our travels.
Yeah.
But she was like, "Hey, when we get where we're going, you got to figure this out." And I'm like, "No kidding."
Wow.
I mean, nothing is worse than having that happen and not being able to say, "Why did that happen?
Yeah.
Why me? What happened?" It was out of the blue, like a lightning bolt. And that was the first really event that kickstarted my journey into learning about PTSD and TBI and generalized anxiety disorder and major depressive disorder. And I think it all comes as one big gift wrap package. You know, you don't just get one little piece of it, you get the whole pie.
Yeah.
But later, I'm still working for the Army. I'm still making do. I'm on the meds now. So, we're treading water. We're keeping our head above water, and we're just running in place, basically. And here we are, 6-7 years later, and we've been just nothing but, meds and counseling that didn't work for 6 years.
Wow.
Things started to get a little worse. The memory started to really fail me. I had incidents of driving to work without my shoes on.
Oh.
Getting an hour into your drive to work and realizing you've got a pair of flip-flops on your foot, not safety-toed steel boots. So I alerted my chain of command that I was having problems. That in itself is a big step.
Yeah. Because you're a big,
I
strong guy. You're military.
yeah,
You're
well,
impenetrable, right?
yeah,
But not. You're human.
I didn't, it was depressing, it was frustrating, caused anger. And the short-term memory was failing, and I was living by the post-it note. My wife would write on a post-it note everything I had to do that next day and leave it for me. So in the morning, it would be put these things on, make sure you've got your boots on. Take your lunch. I mean, I couldn't live without it. Written instructions were the key to my success. Again, all we were doing was developing coping mechanisms similar to the meds, just treading water, running in place. I had a very, very good colonel at the time who was my boss, and he understood. And he appreciated the fact that I came to him and told him I was having some problems. I was able to go to the VA and do a day-long mental health battery test. Because at this point, I had not really been diagnosed with anything.
So they just gave medication to manage the symptoms without even really having a diagnostic conversation?
Didn't have a diagnostic conversation, didn't have
Oh,
anybody directing me towards counseling. It was, here's what's happening, here's meds, have a good day.
oh, wow.
Um, and again, I don't want to get off track and be the guy that beats up on the VA. There are some beautiful, wonderful people in the VA. I mean, then they're doing life-saving work. So
Yeah.
this is Paul's experience. This isn't.
Well, and it's not just your experience. So every organization can improve.
Sure, sure. And at the time we had a real influx of veterans entering the VA system. I mean, and they were overloaded. I mean, we had veterans coming from all the aspects of all services, the huge influx of veterans. And the VA healthcare system, I think at the time wasn't really set up to handle this large influx of people, this surge. But I eventually found my way to getting this day-long battery of tests done in Danville, and came back with the PTSD, TBI. I had two incidents where was injured while in a vehicle,
Oh,
and had lost consciousness. So I had two LOCs, TBI with LOC,
what's LOC?
um, loss of consciousness.
Oh, okay.
And the VA really takes that seriously. You can get
That like
blown up.
like a
You can
concussion?
exactly,
Okay.
but you're knocked out.
Yeah.
You're actually out. So I had two TBIs with LOC, and I had multiple TBIs over the course of my career, but I had two that knocked me out. The second one, for 2 weeks, I couldn't put sentences together. I couldn't talk
Oh
correctly.
my goodness.
I had a real difficult time, and I just didn't talk because I didn't want people to notice.
Mm.
So that's how I dealt with that. I kept that tucked under. Nobody wants to see a captain in explosive ordnance disposal that can't put a sentence together. Eventually, we got the diagnosis we needed, and we started to move towards a path of healing. I was medically retired in 2015. And although it was the path I chose to take, knowing that that was the end goal, the end result was going to be, Paul, if you keep doing this, they're going to medical you.
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel that I felt that I was not safe. I didn't feel that and my safety might jeopardize the safety of others. And
Right.
sometimes we've got to look at things and say, it's not just me.
Right.
Am I doing this to be a hardhead, and am I possibly putting others at risk? So it came to that conclusion. So I medicaled out in 15, and from 15 to 18, I didn't know what to do with myself, not having worked, having worked for 30 plus years in a job that I loved, in an organization that I loved, with a people that I loved. I didn't know what to do. And the anxiety was high and the depression was high. And so I turned to alcohol. That was my coping mechanism, and I was regulated. I didn't drink and drive. I drank at home in the evenings, but I drank too much.
Yeah.
And it was my mode of tamping down anxiety. That's what I used. I found that to be more effective than any med.
Mm.
Um, although you get this, I've still got 5 or 6 meds from the VA, all of which come with the label, do not take with alcohol.
Right.
Um, and anybody at the VA that says, hey, here's these meds, and by the way, don't take them with alcohol. Right, right. You've covered yourself by telling me that, but trust me, I'm taking the alcohol too. Here we are at 2018, and I had just been a mess. I just was not a good father, or not a good son, not a good husband, not a good friend. And this was a one-way street, and it was going to end with me in the ground.
Yeah.
So I knew that things had to change. I knew I had to change my path. I put in for a service dog. I met a trainer at a trade show, and we got to talking. And it's funny because a friend of mine begged me to go to this, and I do not like being around people at the time. I did not want to leave my home. I was a hermit, and he said, "You need to come with me." Okay, I'll go. I went there and just looked at my watch because I couldn't wait to leave. And here was this trainer with a young little 6-month-old puppy, and it was a service dog in training.
Wow.
And I love dogs. I love them, and that was the vehicle for me. So she broke the ice with me, and I talked to her, and she said, you really need to apply for a service dog. Based on what you've told me about yourself, you are ideal candidate. And I was like, yeah, right. I'm sure you've got a million people and 3 dogs. So I'm not, there are, and then of course, the other side of you wants to say, there are people that need it worse than me. There are people that had it so much worse than me, and they're the people that need these dogs. And she's like, no, apply.
Mm.
I applied in November of 17, and in May of 18, I was notified by the organization, if in case you would like to know, is called Got Your Six Support Dogs. They're down in Edwardsville, Illinois.
Love it.
I was notified in I want to say May. Was I still available? Did I still have a desire for a service dog? And I said, absolutely. And then I went through a rather intensive interview in August, and in I think September, I drove down, and I spent 2 weeks on the ground with the folks that Got Your Six, the trainers and staff.
Wow.
Um, I met my dog, and his name was Paul,
That's so
which was
perfect.
just incredible.
Yeah.
Uh, he was named by a staff member who wanted to name a dog after her grandfather. So
Oh.
I got to meet him, and
Oh,
yeah,
how
so it was really neat. So I met, and when I left, I told my wife, I said, I'm going to go down there, and I am not going to have a drink. I am not going to drink a drop the
mm.
whole time I'm down there, and we're going to go 2 weeks, and if we're going to get into this, if we're going to do this right, we're going to do this with a clear head.
Wow.
And so I took the plunge,
That's
and
amazing.
came back with a dog that was real standoffish, and I didn't know if I was doing something wrong, or
Mm.
I didn't know. And it took a while. It took about 6 months before he started trusting me, because to him, I'm just another trainer, you know. But I'll tell you what, it's probably one of the most life-saving moments that I had
Wow.
was that intervention
Mm.
by that organization and by that dog. I just life-saving.
That's
And
incredible.
if you
That's
ever talk to guys that have and gals that have service dogs, veterans or non-veterans,
yeah.
I think they'll all share a similar tale of just what an amazing experience.
I love that.
So Paul and I, Against the World, began in 2018. I came back with him in September, I think, from training, and I told my wife, I said, I got the ball rolling. I'm going to just put more weight behind it.
Yeah.
So I went out, and we had a big push for substitute teachers locally. and I had a degree. I was an officer, so I went out and became a substitute teacher.
That's awesome. But
And I
you
started.
told me a little bit about this. It's not just a regular substitute teacher. Who are these
No,
kids?
I kind of looked for an area where other teachers were reluctant to go.
Wow.
So the two places that I really wanted to drill in on were the juvenile detention facility,
Wow.
and then there was another regional alternative school, and yay Raz, um, and they're just at-risk youth, the kids that have left, the conventional high school, and they're a different type of student, and they need a different type of curriculum. And I was very fortunate to get on board at the regional alternative school and to do some substitute teaching there. And along the way, I put a little more weight behind that ball rolling down the mountain, and I learned that we were standing up a veterans treatment court here locally, the 11th Circuit, which is 5 counties in central Illinois.
Yeah.
And I got on board as a mentor, and we had
Amazing.
just started the program.
Wow.
And that to this day, both those activities are still a part of me and Paul. So I think once you get that tide turned, you can't just rest on that.
I
You
love that.
you you've got to push. You've got to put more on yourself. Don't just and I applied to grad school. So
It's incredible.
I just made a decision. I just made a decision that I was not going to be comfortable. I needed things to occupy my time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to give back. I wanted to be involved with veterans. I wanted to be involved with homeless, at-risk youth, substance abuse. Give me those people, because I
Yeah.
think those people are probably those are where I was, and let's see what impact we can make on them. And in doing that, it just makes me better, and it fills my cup.
Yes.
So
Oh my goodness. So
um,
that's an incredible shift going from where you were to where you are now. What qualities can you identify in yourself that, number one, persevered through all the awful and then shifted so that you are full on committed to taking total advantage of this new positive healing wave? What got you through that?
great question. Um, I will tell you honesty. Being honest with yourself
Mm,
is important. I knew that what I was doing was not being me.
mm,
Um, Desiring to be a better person fuels you in that quest.
yeah,
Um, so honesty, I think, was and honesty to this day means being able to sit in front of someone and talk about things that have gone right for you, but also talk about things that have not gone right for you.
right.
Because other people out there are going through these things, and they need to know, hey, I'm not alone. This
Yeah.
isn't, there are others who have done this and been where I'm at, and there is a way out.
Mm,
So honesty, I think, is crucial. And I think not wanting to let somebody else down. And again, not wanting to let yourself down,
yeah.
but not wanting to let my wife down, and
Yeah.
my mom and dad down, and my sister down, and my friends down. I people don't want to say things to you, but you can see it in their eyes that they recognize that you are changed. When you reach that tipping point, you changed.
Mm,
And it can be frightening.
yeah, for sure.
But sitting there and saying, I may not ever be the person I was, but I can be better than the person I am now.
Wow. Oh, I love
And
that.
so I don't settle. I don't want to just settle. I don't want to settle for being this old guy that sits on his farm in Illinois and and gets a sack full of meds every month in the mailbox from the VA, and stops by the liquor store twice a week for his 2 175s of Jack Daniels, right?
Wow.
That's not the way to go.
Yeah.
I've tried that. I've tried that. That is not the way to go. You're letting yourself down, and you're letting the people that care about you down.
Yeah.
Um, and so better yourself and then better others. If you can devote yourself to a task and a mission of military folks are mission oriented. Boy, we
All right.
give us a mission. So I gave myself a mission. I
Yeah.
didn't wait for somebody else to give it to me. I didn't wait for law enforcement to give it to me.
Right.
I didn't wait for someone else to stand up and make this call for me. Do it while you are capable of voluntarily doing it. So I gave myself a mission of, hey, I'm going to make other people better. Try to, and I'm going to see what happens, because I think that if I do that, it's going to make me feel better about myself,
Yeah.
and it does, and it
Oh,
does.
yeah.
So I
Oh,
hope I answered your question.
oh, absolutely. It's beautiful. It's perfect. I love it. And in our some of our previous communication, you mentioned that I'm not cured, but I keep going. And I think that's where we all are, right? I mean, I've been helping people for a long time, but I'm not done. I still have my own healing journey. It just shifts and it looks different than it did before. And as we again, I love that, staying honest with yourself and recognizing, where am I weak? Where am I strong? How do I get help here? How do I capitalize on this? And how do I find that joy? How do I be true to me? I love that you said that too. And then help people. How can I help people even though I'm very imperfect and still struggling? And right, that's the vulnerability side. But I love that you're not you're not waiting. You're not waiting until everything's perfect to go out and help. You recognize the value of helping people to help you move forward on your healing journey.
Also, not waiting till I hit rock bottom to realize that I need to do something different.
Definitely.
Um, if you wait till then, again, your choices may be limited.
For sure.
Uh, I just knew that there was a way. There had to be a way, and I may never
Yes.
be who I once was, but I can be better than
Yeah.
what I am now, and I can reach the point where I take pride in myself again, because I
Mm.
think we lose our self-esteem starts to leak out with a balloon with a little pinhole in it, and it
Mm.
gradually starts to leak out of that balloon and shrink, and we need to, it may be all you can do right now is put something over that hole, and
Mm.
that's a start. That's a
Yes.
start. Let's stop the loss, and then we'll start inflating that balloon again. Okay, I may never be cured, but that's okay. And
Yeah.
and I may experience setbacks, but you know what? That's okay too. That because you experience a setback doesn't mean that you have failed. You can go years on this journey, and if you let a setback knock you off of it, hey, you're better than that. You're better than that. Get back on that horse and ride, and just allow yourself to be human. Acknowledge the fact that you are no better or no worse than anyone else. I think we really are hard on ourselves. I think that the person that's at least for me, it's very hard for me to forgive myself for things.
Mm.
I mean, I could do a million good things and do one bad thing, and that's all I think about is that bad thing.
Right.
I mean, that's all I think about.
Yeah.
And and you've got to get to the point where that give yourself the chance to be human. And I may not be the best at that yet. I'm a work in progress.
Love that.
So but that's okay. I've got time, and I've got energy, and I'm still breathing,
Yeah.
Bring on tomorrow. Let's
I
go.
love yes. Well, and I think that that's key is that we're not looking for perfection. We are looking for progress. So if we can get on a steady, however bumpy it is, road of progress where our trajectory is in the right direction, that's all that we should expect of ourselves. That's all that we should really aim for is that gradual improvement, the steady as she goes, right? The progress over perfection. Perfection just has too many spokes of dangerous things on it. And that's a scary and dangerous place to live and a mindset to have. So yes, honor and aim for progress, because then I think we end up being a little more compassionate with ourselves when we do flub up and have a dumb day or a weak day and or a moment where we mess up, right? It's recognizing, okay, you're right, get up, dust yourself off and take that forward step again. Because it's when we give up or we assign some kind of final judgment to that mistake is where we really have a problem. Because yeah, there is tomorrow. There is 2 minutes from now. And I can choose better 2 minutes from now. I don't have to stay in this awful place of, which it's hard to do, right? And so I love that you have this amazing support group around you. And I mean, how valuable is that to be able to put people around you, gather people around you where it's safe to mess up. It's safe to strive for impossible, amazing, wonderful, right? It's the same to be able to have that kind of support group that loves you when you're down and knows who you really are, so they don't get caught up in, oh yeah, she made a mistake, so it's all right, get back up. And then the next minute where we say, no, I have a goal to reach the moon, to reach the stars. I have this huge goal. They're not going to look at you and go, don't you remember just a minute ago you were down and awful? The good people around us are not going to hold those moments against us, because I know that's what holds me back. I know that if I let out too much of my own weakness, too much of my own folly, too much of my own fears and anxieties, that I can't be a person who stands up and says, I want to help lift you up, because there's that little that happens inside that says, but you were just down there. How can you help them? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. It's okay that I'm flawed. It's okay that I mess up. It's okay that I have weak moments. I still want to help lift somebody else up. And I think as we make that space for each other a little bit more, that we'll feel freer to desire good, to aim to do good. Because somebody who wants to do good, if we can create this safe space, is not expected to be perfect. They don't have to have it all figured out, because then there'd be nobody to help anybody. It's all of us imperfect and desiring that lift each other up.
And I think you brought up a good point is also who you surround yourself with is important. People that just constantly bring to light your failures and maximize your failures and minimize your positive attributes, those people are holding you down.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate. I've got a super family.
Yeah.
My wife is awesome. I go to a combat support group. It's a counseling. We Zoom, and all of us meet. It's sponsored by Rush University in Chicago, and there's a psychologist there who is a serving Army Special Forces officer, and so he really gets it.
Yeah.
And so all of us guys, when we can, twice a month, we meet and we all Zoom together. And it has been so beneficial for me. And you talk about being in a room full of folks where you could lay it all out there. You think of yourself as the worst person that you could. I'm just the lowest of the low.
Mm.
And you sit in a room with those guys, and by the time you're done and the support group ends, you are changed. I
Wow.
mean, you are up, your spirits are buoyed. I mean, you're smiling. This is why Warrior Connection and the peer-to-peer counseling aspect of Warrior Connection, I think, is so impactful. Because I have been to other counseling, I have been to other support groups, but I think when people of like minds and like experiences get together and talk amongst themselves, and you have folks, facilitators that are there to kind of keep you in the rails, and to kind of move the discussion along, and to kind of go a little deeper when I know you're right on the edge. I know you're just going to tell me something. What is it? You can get in these rooms and be comfortable, and we really put forth a tribal aspect in the Warrior Connection. And back to Sebastian Younger, he
Yes.
has a book called Tribe.
Oh, awesome. Is that what his TED Talk it kind of introduces?
Yep.
Love it.
Nailed it. And there's something about the tribe.
Yeah.
And when you're a service member or a civilian that is experiencing trauma, and you're back where you're frustrated and you don't know what's going on, and why do I feel this way, and why can't I get along with anybody, and why can't I sleep? It's nice to find people of like experiences and glue yourself together and form this tribe, because you're not alone. You're part of a tribe, and a tribe may be 4 people or it may be 40, but there's something about that tribal aspect that is really powerful. And it really, we talk about families and extended families and being part of an organization or a company or whatever, but being part of a tribe takes on a whole different meaning.
For sure.
Greeting every morning, sitting around a circle together, 6 or 8 people, and everybody sits there quietly, and you look over and you go, Tiffany, I see you.
Oh, I love that.
And you may respond with, Paul, good to be seen by you. And
Mm.
then you turn around and you look at John, I see you.
Mm.
It's good to be seen by you. I
Wow.
mean, because we're not seen.
Yes.
People forget and think that they're all alone. Nobody sees me. Nobody can help me. I can't even help myself. Oh, yes, you can. Come on.
Wow.
It's doable. It's doable. And there's a lot of folks that are out there that are really, that really feel alone, and don't feel that they're part of a tribe, and nobody feels like me. And man, the Warrior Connection is a great org, and there are a lot of great orgs out there that would just love to have you give it a taste.
I love
And everybody, I think, has this secret recipe.
Yeah.
For me, it was a combination of service dog, Warrior Connection.
Yeah.
All that was the magic code that unlocked my vault of trauma and allowed me to get it out and talk about it and move past it and flush it out of my head. And certain orgs and service dogs may not be right for everybody. Equine therapy may be great. There are a lot of organizations out there that really, really want to help, and they have different methods of I don't think anybody in the nonprofit orgs, especially dealing with veterans, says we are it. We are the ones that make it happen for everybody.
Right.
No. Your what it takes to unlock your trauma, it may be different from what it takes to unlock my trauma.
Yeah.
Some people work better in larger groups. Maybe they're task oriented. Maybe it's a Project Odyssey or a Wounded Warrior event or mission. And again, maybe it's an equine therapy or an outdoor learning experience. I was very fortunate to stumble on the Warrior Connection, and I think until never give up. Never give
Mm.
up. Don't
Yeah.
give up on yourself.
Mm.
I think we've all been to places where we think, oh, I'm giving up. That's it. Nobody can help me. I'm giving up. You know, come on now, come on, try one more time. I spoke to a gentleman that I interviewed for Warrior Connection when I screened an individual who applied to the organization, and I asked him. I said, "Why us? Why did you come to us?" And he said, "Well," and I said, "Have you been to other retreats? What did they do for you? Did they work? Did they not work? What's going on?" He said, "No, I've never had another retreat experience. Never been to one." He said, I've been having some suicidal ideation. You
Oh,
know, I've been having some tough times, and I just don't want to give up. I just don't want to give up on my family and on myself."
yeah.
And I was like, "You're in the right place.
Oh, yeah.
You're in the right place. You're right where you need to be." And I applaud you. I applaud you for taking that step. I mean, sometimes it's nothing more than an email. You know, you can send an email. I could go
Yeah.
online right now and apply for 10 retreats in 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Um, so what's stopping you? You know, well, they'll never call me. They'll never call me. Yeah, I said that when I applied for a service dog.
Yes, you did.
It happened,
Yay.
changed my life. So, not giving up is, in the military, we don't give up. We don't leave people behind. At the same time, don't leave yourself behind.
Yeah.
Okay. So I know a lot of folks have been through a lot. Nobody can help me. I'm a failure. I don't do anything right. I just, you know, well, let's give something a try, and it may work. It may not work. Doesn't mean you're still a failure. It means you're trying. So we've put that little band-aid over that leaky balloon because you're trying now. Now you're trying. We
Yeah.
may not be filling that self-esteem balloon up anymore, but at least we stopped the loss. There is a recipe for progress, not perfection,
Yes.
out there for everyone. If you feel comfortable in your skin by meds alone, then that's the way maybe you should be.
Mm.
If you think there's something more out there, and I'm not self-actualized, I'm not engaged, I'm just on the fringe, then dive down a little deeper. Let's try some of this stuff out. These orgs are free. They pay for everything. The
Mm.
Warrior Connection to me has been just amazing. I When I went as a participant, I thought nothing could rival this experience.
Wow.
Nothing. I came home and I just felt, my blood pressure was lower. I mean, visibly lower. I would go see my doc and he'd be like, "What's going on?" I'd be like,
Wow.
"I just feel better. I feel better." We teach some great tools, some great mindfulness and some grounding techniques and some breathing stuff and yoga and all that stuff that for 6 or 8 years I was satisfied to take the meds instead of because that stuff didn't work. It wasn't going to work for me. Oh, yes, it will, but you got to try.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the Warrior Connection has been a real blessing. But I thought that nothing could rival the experience of being a participant at Warrior Connection, returning and training as a staff member, and going through watching people participate and going through it again. Oh man, it just opens you wide up. I go there and I feel like a wet towel that's been just wrung out. When I go for a week and I come back and I fly in and my wife's like, "How'd it go?" And I'm like, "I'll let you know in a couple of days. Right now, I just want to give me a book. Let me sit in a lawn chair and read for a while. I just need to take it easy."
Wow.
Um, but watching, I've never been to a Warrior Connection retreat and seen someone not make progress. I've never seen someone come there and I can't be fixed, and they leave saying I can't be fixed. I've never seen that happen. And I'm sure I'm sure that happens at other retreats too. We're not unique in the fact that we help people, but the Warrior Connection has that tribal feel, has that peer-to-peer aspect. And the big secret sauce at Warrior Connection is the art therapy. We've got just the greatest staff that takes art and uses that as a pry bar to pry that door open to all your trauma. And it's so effective. It's just ridiculously effective. Never thought anything, you don't have to be an artist, but you will speak through your art. And then when you're asked to talk about your art, you'll find yourself talking about things that you didn't want to talk about, but it's okay. It's okay.
Wow.
So
I love it. So how do people get in contact with the Warrior Connection? If they're feeling inspired, like you are speaking my language, how do they connect with the Warrior Connection?
So www.warriorconnection.org. And if you go in there, you're going to be able to look at the staff and look at all the folks. I mean, we were really fortunate recently to bring on a person that I really and I have met and I really think highly of. Colonel Allen West was able to join us as a board member. It brings a lot to the table. We've got some new leadership in there that is really exciting. Elizabeth Fields is tremendously effective.
He's great.
And we've got some facilitators that have really done their time and are very experienced. So it's a good place to be. And if we aren't right for you, then let's help you find someone that is.
I love that.
So if you come to us and say, I'm really looking for something for couples. My wife and I we need to nail this down. Well, we're not in the couples business right now, but we're going to help you find someone who is. Oh. And we have affiliates at different orgs that handle the couples and handle different things for folks. So, and there are orgs out there for all the first responders, the LE, the EMTs, the fire guys, the paramedics. Again, trauma is not a veteran-only thing.
Right.
So.
I love it. Well, Paul, this has been so perfect. I am so grateful for your insights and your heart and your wisdom and so much that you've been willing to share of your difficulties and your triumphs. You're not just a survivor, you're a hero. And I love all that you've been sharing. If there's one last message that you would like to share with our listeners, what would that be?
We can never give up, and we've got to be thankful for every day. And every day that we are alive, we are able to make an impact on the lives of others. There are countless people who will tell you after the loss of a loved one or family member, man, if I just had one more day with this person, one more day, I'd give everything to have one more day with my mom. You've got one more day. You've got it. So let's do something with it. Don't be that guy that doesn't feel they can, they're destined for the bottom of the barrel. Don't be that guy. Be willing to take chances. Be willing to explore. Be willing to do things you haven't done, because what you're doing is apparently not working. Okay. So doing the same thing and trying to get different results is not a good way to go. So, be thankful for every day that you get up. Be thankful for the sacrifices of others who may have allowed you to be in this place. Yeah. And although it may be saddening to look back on fellow service members that were lost in time of war, they were doing what you were doing. They were doing what they loved in the company of the people they loved. You owe it to those people to keep moving forward. You owe it to those people to send those emails to warriorconnection.org. You owe it to those people to reach out to the other organizations out there, the places that you've never tried, the things you've never done. And somewhere out there is that secret sauce that is going to make you a better person. But you're never going to find it if you don't try. So show up. Life is about showing up. We tell people at Warrior Connection that, 99% of what we do is you showing up. If I get you here, you can come with a closed mind or open mind. You come however you want to come. If I get you here and we start going through this, we're going to change. Something's going to change. We're going to be able to open some doors, and we're going to be able to think about some things differently, and we're going to send you home a different person than when you came, a better person than when you came. And isn't that what we want to do? And I would say also that in the deepest, darkest depths of despair, when you think you have nothing to offer the world, go out there and make a difference for someone else. Go out there to the mission and serve food. Okay? And realize at the end of the day that you don't have it so bad. There are people out there that are much worse off than you, that have no capacity to affect change in their lives. A lot of the folks you served food to tonight would trade places with you in a second. So, I think sometimes we're our own worst enemies. We think that we've got nothing to offer, and really, every day we draw a breath, every morning we get up, here's a day where we can make a difference in our lives and in the lives of others. Yeah. So be thankful for each day and show up for yourself and show up for others.
Thank you so much, Paul. This was so perfect. I mean, the name of the podcast is Serve, Love, Lift. You're preaching all the good things, serving others with what you have to give, right? Learning to love ourselves and others better, and going out and lifting each other up so that we can all live with joy. We can all find that hope again. We can all, like you say, be more of ourselves again. So thank you so much for this beautiful interview. It's inspiring and profound, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for the opportunity, and thank you to all those organizations out there, and all the staff, and all the volunteers, and all the donors, and all those people out there that make these organizations happen. I mean, without you, I wouldn't be where I am. Wow. And a lot of people wouldn't be where they are. Wow. So thank you. And Tiffany, you spreading the word is vitally important. So thank you as well.
You're welcome. We're in this together.
We are indeed.
Thank you for being with me. Remember to share this episode with 3 people who you feel could use it today. Don't want to wait for next week for new insights and wisdom? Go to www.tiffanygarvin.com/emotional healing for a free guide to help you begin healing the emotional wounds that are holding you back. Again, the link is tiffanygarvin.com/emotional healing. It will be in the show notes as well. I believe in you. See you next week.